US banks repossessed 95,000 properties last month, more than in any previous month since the mortgage crisis began. Craig McMurtry, ABC News, Washington.
For more on this, we're joined by Professor Edward Blakely, who's an author and urban policy expert at Sydney University's US Studies Centre. Professor Blakely, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
A national poverty rate of 14.3% last year, and as we just heard in that story, 300 new cases a week. Is there any indication that that number might have started to decline this year?
No, it hasn't declined because, for two reasons. One, the Clinton initiatives that took people out of poverty by giving them workfare have now exhausted. So those people who got a few more dollars for going to work and being subsidized in the workplace are now going back under the poverty rolls, and that will continue for another year or so as those individuals can't find work even though they've been trained.
So, well, I guess the other point about this was that the median incomes in the US actually held steady, and the President took that as good news, but how much of that is also welfare at work that may start to fall off soon?
A little bit of it. And I suspect we'll see the numbers going up before they go down. The good news is that people have more training than they had before, so when the economy improves, they'll be able to suck up some of those jobs that are available, and particularly in those areas where Americans formerly didn't want to work, particularly in areas like in the restaurant industry and so forth, where they had a hard time finding people. These people will be available and ready to go to work.
So you put this down very much to current economic conditions and flow through from the global financial crisis. There's no risk here that this is becoming almost systemic?
Well, it is systemic in two ways. One of them is poverty begets poverty. That is, people when poor produce children who enter the world in poverty and have poor educational outcomes and so forth. So that is systemic. The other thing is the large prison population in the United States. When people go to prison, they come out undereducated, unable to find jobs, and many of them have produced children. And that system of constantly producing poverty is the subject of the book that I just completed.
So that national poverty rate of 14.3%, what could it possibly get to? What is the best, even in positive economic circumstances?
I think on the high side it might reach as high as 16, but then if the economy picks up, it could fall to as low as 11, but it won't fall much lower than that.
Of course, the US has got an unemployment rate that's double that of Australia, but do you have any sense of what the current poverty rate is in this country?
Well, we don't publish poverty statistics here, but the gap between the rich and the poor is growing, and more people are becoming what we'd call homeless in the United States, unable to cope. But fortunately, we have a very good social network here, service network here, that keeps people out of abject poverty.
And of course, we've had nowhere near the dire financial crisis that the US has had. What are these sorts of numbers going to mean for the Obama government in the lead up to the midterm elections?
Disaster. People now know someone in their family who's on welfare. That's almost unprecedented in the United States. The poor were people you didn't know. Now the poor are people you do know. And people look to government to solving that problem because since FDR and the great welfare states in Europe and so forth, government has been able to solve that problem. But we see the stimulus packages and things like that are not solving that problem at all anymore.
So even though the crisis was a global one, you think this will be sheeted home to the Obama administration when it comes time to vote?
Americans are local. Elections are local. Everything's determined on how you feel locally, not on what's going on in the world. Unfortunately, most Americans don't know what's going on in the rest of the world. They know what's going on at home, and if they're unemployed and the members of their family are unemployed, they're going to vote against the president. You
made the point a lot of these people are relatively skilled, and that when the economy does pick up, they will be able to find jobs. When do you think that is going to be?
Well, from the economists that I've been hearing, and it's a bit mixed story, they think this lag is going to go on for a little bit more, maybe 12 months or so. But at the end of 12 months, looks like the U.S. economy will start picking up. Remember, the United States is going to have 100 million more Americans by 2050. So that means housing, that means all kinds of consumer items and the like. The bottom has fallen out. A lot of overspending and so forth. Americans are saving. Those savings will flow into jobs.
Still talking, though, aren't we? A long, slow haul for many Americans.
Too slow for Mr. Obama.
Professor Edward Blakely, many thanks for talking to Afternoon Live.
Thank you.